Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo.
And I'm Jesse Anderson from Quackalope.
And today we're doing a video that we've been talking about for a while, and we have lots of these kinds of videos.
I don't know why you had us coordinate that intro like that.
Yeah, that intro was weird, bizarre.
Yeah.
But this video is going to basically be 10 things every content creator should know. A little bit more focused towards board gamers, at least for my list. Okay. Although most of them are going to be applicable to anything.
Mine is not focused towards board gamers at all.
Yeah, mine's like 2 of my 10 are like board game focused.
Yeah, all of my 10 are about content creation as a premise.
Sure.
And not targeting.
But I think that also might reflect the way we both came into this hobby, in the aspect of you were someone who produced content and then became a content creator for board games.
Yes, 100%.
I was someone who played board games and then became a content creator for board games.
So I've been a freelance photographer and videographer for the past 8 years. I have a degree in film and media production, which did nothing to aid my current career. And like you said, I transitioned from content creation, equipment, gear, experience into this hobby space. And you, you're scrappy and bored and decided to film something in front of your camera.
100%. Using my phone thingy and terrible mic and terrible everything until this guy's like, hey, if you're going to actually catch me, at least have your content be halfway decent and force me to get some stuff.
You've taken off, and now I'm running... I'm stumbling in front of you. I'm stumbling in front of you. We're currently on Quackalope at 22,000 subscribers. You just crossed 20. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does that... I mean, that means at least a few people should listen to us.
It means it's cool.
We've learned something.
It's fun. Yeah. And so this is going to be, again, 10 things every content creator should know from our own stances of whatever. Things that I either figured out along the way, wish somebody else would have told me, wish I would have known earlier, all those different categories of types of things. And the first one, starting off with the first one. Actually, why don't you take the first one?
I'm going to take the first one?
You're the guest on this channel.
Wow.
You take the first one.
I'm going to do one that specifically was chosen to cater to the BoardGameCo audience base, because I know they're here, and I know what you've built your platform on.
This is not going to be good.
Things having value.
Yes.
And always making sure that you're getting a return on, or a potential return, or at least stability on the value that you're investing in a thing. And one of the very first and biggest mistakes that I've seen new content creators do, whether it's in the board game space or out in the hobby space or even in a professional realm, is you always want to purchase the new gear, the new thing. You want to upgrade stuff before you have the experience to justify it. And so my rule, my first tip or trick is going to be, don't spend money without earnings. Now, there's 2 ways to tie this down. I do believe it is okay to sell board games, for instance, to justify content creation gear for your board game hobby or board game channel. I find that to be in the same realm of money spent, but additional spendings. To buy a new camera, to upgrade what you already have, to buy a ton of lights or a new set or games to cover. Don't. Start with what you have. A cell phone can do just as good as this camera can. A window light, if you know the time of day, or you have it planned accordingly with some shades that just blur out the light that's coming through. Literally, there's so much you can learn before you spend a dime. And the only reason why you should spend money is because you've learned enough and you know your limitations with the gear that you currently have. Once you know that, you know where to buy solutions.
Yep. You also know whether you've stuck with it for long enough. You don't want to buy a whole new camera because you decide to do content creation for a week.
Yeah.
You'll know anything from your audience size, from how much money you have coming in from ad revenue, from Patreons, from who knows what. All these things to justify the experience. All these facets. It's a great one.
And justify it. Again, in the board game space, it's a little different because it is harder in some ways to earn $1 as quickly.
Sure.
But it is easier to get free games. It is easier and quicker to sell some of the games you already have. There are ways to cycle money, but don't reinvest more into a thing that you're not sure you're going to be committed to.
Completely agree. Yeah. My number 1 is going to be very broad, but it's going to be kind of a starting premise to everything else here.
Okay.
Which is...
Don't do it.
Almost.
What? Okay.
Almost.
Yeah.
Figure out what you're doing and why you're doing it. Sorry, figure out why you're doing this and what success looks like to yourself.
I have timeline, goals, success.
Yes, I want to put it first and foremost because for me, to be very clear, it's not saying don't do it. In anything, it's saying do it. Absolutely do it. But something I've seen I've only been in content creation for a year plus.
Yeah.
But I've been in the board game space for going on 9, 10 years now.
17 and a half years.
17 and a half years.
You're young for the way you look.
Going on that 10 years of being in the space, I have seen time and time again the same channels that exist and continue existing, and then so many other channels that go, phew, they're just up and gone. And I think that's because a lot of people enter this space as a passion project because, to be frank, there's not a ton of money in it unless you get really, really large. You might be able to pay for a little equipment, get a few board games, but the time investment you put in, you have to get to a fairly decent size before you're even making minimum wage, let alone anything past that. This is a labor of love, and you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing, what does success look like, define those goals before you walk in. Those goals might vary. Those goals can be anything you want.
And here's the thing. Success as a metric does not mean I have left my job and I'm doing this full time. It does not mean I have crossed 30,000 subscribers.
Absolutely.
What success means as a metric, or what your motivation for content creation, the reason it's important to determine that is because that then becomes the gauge by which you decide if you're continuing, if you're pushing forward. Is it building community? Is it spending time with your friends and family? Is it you just really enjoy doing content creation and you want to build a habit that posts something every single week of the year? But you need to know those parameters, or you'll end up a year or 2 years down the road looking at this arbitrary idea that you had and realizing it wasn't this dream that you thought it would be.
You just want to know what you're doing.
Won't be.
Are you doing it for fun? Are you doing it for, like you said, all those things you said? Fun, community, free board games, one of those things.
All of them are justifiable. But if you don't have something nailed down, you'll find that your idea of success is different from what your mind is telling you.
That's my number one.
Well, that is a good number one. What is your number two?
Oh, fine. I'm turning it around on me. Fine. My number two is going to be utilize board game reviews and media Facebook groups. Meaning, there are a lot of Facebook groups out there.
That's a board game specific one.
That's a board game specific one. There's a lot of board game groups out there that are specifically catered towards connecting reviewers with content creators. And it's something that, this is not something you can really do day one. The first one is kind of like ideally a day one thing, although if you haven't done it already, it is what it is. But the groups, you're going to want to have at least a certain size. Certain size is not necessarily as big as you think.
It
might be a few hundred subscribers. It does not have to be gigantic numbers. But there are groups that will connect people who are saying, hey, I have a game. I need to get reviewers to review it. And you know what? Our budget doesn't allow for a Dice Tower and a Rado and a whoever review to cover it. So we just want to find content creators to cover our game. And that's when they'll connect with any number of different sizes of people.
The interesting thing is it is much easier to join a community to build your audience than it is to just grow it by sheer power and force. And that's what you're touching on, right? Like, come be a part of the space. Interact with other content creators, interact with publishers, interact on Facebook groups. Like, you're specifically saying utilize Facebook pages, because that's where a lot of our community is right now. But just go exist in a community space, and you'll find that being part of that leverages your own success a lot.
And also another factor of this as well is also just the general support you'll find. It's not just about those groups to connect reviewers, but like you said, it's the community aspect. When you're having a bad day, or alternatively when you've hit a new milestone, you crossed 500 subs, or the first video you put out that crossed 1,000 views, or any of your milestones, or maybe just there's a piece of content you've created that you are so proud of because it just really speaks to yourself.
No, that one won't get any eyes.
That won't get any eyes.
No, you know how it is. The things you're the most excited about.
That's the point. I'm saying that's exactly what I mean. That piece of that video that you're so proud of that nobody else really watched, your audience didn't watch it. You go into a Facebook group and you're like, guys, I did this video. I'm proud of it. You will get support. You'll get comments. You'll get people who have been in that space who their own favorite video was one of their worst performing on their channel, and they get it. And so
my whole flavor text series just has never balanced out.
Inspired by Jesse's flavor text series, that was my number two.
Now that's a perfect transition over to something that isn't quite on the same line of yours. Yours is much more specific, but I have collaborate often and early.
I feel like I should have put that on there.
That doesn't mean be absorbed by someone. It doesn't mean lend your voice to theirs. But what it does mean is that there is so much direct and intrinsic value in just working together, like we're doing right now. And here's the thing. It's not about someone giving you something. That's not the point of collaboration. Collaboration is to be a part of the conversation, to be a part of the community, to lend your voice to the growth of a multitude of channels. The point isn't and shouldn't be, well, I'm going to go on this bigger network and they're going to give me 1,000 subscribers.
Exactly.
Instead, find those that oftentimes are around you, smaller than you, and start teaming up. Start networking. Their fan base will be different than yours. Their ideas will be different than yours. Their growth and trajectory and everything will be benefited because you decided to network. I'd venture to guess that, like, the pace that we've both set, both of us crossing 20,000 this year, I think we might have made it there without each other.
I think it's certainly boosted,
the journey has been enhanced and substantially easier because we've been able to leverage each other's success and genuinely invest in each other. And we're seeking that out with a lot of other people. So Collaborate often and early.
My number 3. I mean, number
What
3
about my
and 4.
number 3?
Go with. This is my channel. I'm driving
Well,
this show.
But I gave you number 2.
No, but I go in order. I've never done this ricochet back and forth.
My number 3 is going to be write down your ideas and write down maybe your format or structure of shows before you start. That'd be a good idea.
That'd be a good idea.
At this point, we're both just
and share that with the other person you're talking to.
The reason why writing down ideas is so important, it's something that I know you do.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because there's so much content. There's so much good content to produce. There's so many ideas that are worthwhile, and if you get it out of your head and you take the first step to jot down notes, organize them, structure them, you always have something that you can talk about, that you can film against. It leverages that brain space that you have and allows you as a content creator to just like structure and plan ahead. I do not do this very effectively. This is something that I am actively learning how to do, and when I do it, I'm much more proficient and able to continue producing content at a rapid pace. The reason why I think you've been able to do daily content for almost a year is because you are organized in a way that I am still struggling to be.
Yeah, which we'll get to on my list because I have something along those lines.
You're not going to bring it up now?
No.
You're going to wait till...
Fine, I'll go out of order. Jeez. Scheduling. Not writing down. I should have done writing down as well, but scheduling is going to be my number 6, but we'll call it my number 3. So,
it's a good number 3.
Scheduling is the same idea as what you just talked about. Mm-hmm. The idea that if you sit there and you figure out a schedule, figure out what you're doing, how often you're doing it, and keep in mind, YouTube rewards consistency. YouTube rewards consistency on a regular basis. They want to see regular content. Now, regular content does not mean daily content. It doesn't. Even if you're putting out a video once a month, that is still consistency as long as you're doing it on a regular schedule. Once a week is ideally better. YouTube or the algorithm in general do want to see more regular content. Moving to more than once a week, generally that's going to be channel by channel to what you're doing. It's something that could actually hurt you as well. To a certain extent, audiences will tune out if you're putting out daily content unless there's a reason to keep coming back every single day. So it is definitely a balance. But the general idea of consistency and utilizing a schedule, utilizing scheduling tools, whether it's Google Calendar, whether it's Trello, Notion, whatever boards or systems you want to use to ensure you have an idea of the content you're producing and what milestones you're hitting is going to help you.
If you search a video called Value Your Time on YouTube, you'll find Alex talking about that very same idea over on a secret little channel that I run called Jesse Samuel Anderson.
Oh, that's a channel that's under 1,000 subscribers. I could have done that one.
But it's not board game focused.
Whatever.
Yeah.
My number 3 in order-ish, this whole thing's going to be out of order. No, I'm not falling for it. Absolutely not falling for it. Is going to be and actually my 3 and 4 are tied.
You almost got it out of your mouth.
My 3 and 4 are going to be tied.
It's so close. Here
be
we go.
different or be better. What I mean by that is this space, as much as it's huge, it is huge, and the audience is going to be huge too, and the audience is growing every single year. Board games as a focus are growing every single year in general.
This is true for anything.
It's true for anything.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and this is going to be, the advice is true for anything as well. In some way, you're always going to be entering a crowded field. You're always going to be entering a field of other people who are doing the same thing as you are doing. So to that extent, be different or be better.
Yep.
Find an avenue, a lens, a way that you are in some way different than other channels, giving people, therefore, a reason to watch. Using the board game space as an example.
I'm pretty different.
You're pretty different.
Just overall.
Highly edited content.
I wasn't talking about that.
So actually, you're not talking. You're better.
I was just talking about
me.
But
I'm talking about it. But let's look at the board game space. Let's look at the people out there. Shut Up and Sit Down, one of the largest channels out there. They were the first board game channel to say, we're going to tie together humor into the board games and make a presentation. It's not just informational, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
Tom Vassell was, one of the first to begin with, so that's going to be just...
They're the best at covering everything.
They're the best at covering everything.
Yeah.
Rodney Smith, Watch It Played. Rodney Smith is the first person who
best at being a good human.
We're going to teach people how to play games. We're going to teach that. There's not a consistent content out there around that. We're going to do something like that. My channel, thankfully, has been able to take off to a certain degree because I focused on value. I focused on the economy of the board game space, which other channels really haven't done en masse in any real way.
Yep.
You're going to fall into the be better category, meaning you take a high quality content to a degree. You not only are incredibly high quality in the content you produce, but you do it consistently with a consistency that other channels that do well edited content just haven't really delivered that level of consistency. So you want to, in some way, in whatever you're doing, be different or be better. Ask yourself before you put out the content, why are people watching me compared to someone else? Now, again, to be very clear, to tie it back to the first thing, ultimately, establish your goals first. If you just want to be on video talking about your board games, that takes precedence over anything else. If you want to see what you can do to help your channel grow and succeed, and to get more subscribers, more viewers, more watchers, you have to answer the question for yourself: why are people watching me over someone else? What is different?
And the hard part there is, I think, no matter what people's goals are, to some degree, that growth, that community, those numbers do end up being a question point.
Of course.
And so that is the way that you answer, even if you just want to be on camera talking. How do you do so differently? How do you do so better? How do you foster a space that rewards the time you're putting in?
And then my number 4, because we're doing that apparently.
Wait, what about my number 4?
No, we're doing my number 3 and 4 are tied, and we're playing your game now. We'll come back to yours. This is going to be a mess.
I don't even think I did one after you.
My number 4 is going to be, if you're trying something that others have done unsuccessfully, ask yourself why it's going to be different for you. Now, I have a specific thing in mind that made me craft that, which is the concept of board game interviews. Board game interviews, in the board game space particularly, generally haven't done that well.
What do you mean by interviews?
Interviewing people in the space, interviewing media people, board game designers, publishers, just hopping on a camera with other people. They just don't seem to do as well as talking about board games.
Some of them do.
Some of them, exceptions.
Yeah.
But they're usually just not that popular. And so, if you're doing something different, whether it's board game interviews, whatever the content is, if other people have tried that specific aspect and not done well...
Why are you going to be different?
Why are you going to be different?
Yeah.
And it's a conversation, I specifically have this one because I've had this conversation with a lot of other people who wanted to do things that haven't done well. And I'm telling them, ask them, what is what you are doing going to be different than what other people have tried before? And why will you succeed when
if you find yourself saying, but no one's done this yet.
Yeah.
Are you correct in that assumption?
Absolutely.
Or has there just not been a market? And again, if you can find that niche, if you can figure out where that lane is to produce something that is different or better, then maybe you have a real shot. But those two do tie together in a very uncomfortable way.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I also have two that tie together in an interesting way, so we're just going to skip your next one as well.
I'm cool with it.
Don't do things you don't enjoy.
Yep.
Protect the idea of fun. This content creation space, no matter whatever you're doing in it.
That's going to be my number 10, saving it for last, because I thought it'd be great to save that one for last.
The amount of burnout in this world, in this content creation world, is due to not understanding your goals, not understanding your success, like doing it so consistently, having algorithms that reward you being connected all the time, but also because people at a certain time start chasing the dollar, or they start chasing what people are demanding, and they lose sight of the thing that they actually enjoy, or the act of content creation itself has changed how they interact with the thing that they originally enjoyed to such a degree that they've lost sight of why they started. You can't do that. You have to protect the fun. In the board game space, if you're not having fun, if you're not producing content you love doing, you're going to burn out. It's just not going to be sustainable. And so if you find yourself getting to the point where you're going, I have to film a video, or I'd really like to go do this other thing, but I'm not able to, you probably should start asking yourself questions. Why, and how do you get back to the point where you're still enjoying what you're doing?
Yeah. That's my number 10, and I'll talk about it when it's my number 10, because I think it's
important.
Well,
I have another one here that ties to that as well. You might not enjoy everything you have to do.
That's true.
Yeah. So here's where this weird caveat comes into play. I really do believe that you should protect and do everything that you enjoy, and do nothing that you don't enjoy. With the exception that at a certain point, at a certain size, when you really do start turning this into a thing that potentially, if one of your goals is to make a career out of this, there are elements of effective marketing, of design, of investment, of responding to people as much as you can. Like, there are elements that aren't fun. Try to limit those. Try to be careful with the way that you do those and how you interact with them, but there is a caveat to that initial statement. You might not enjoy everything you have to do, but you should try to do everything that you enjoy.
Agreed.
Yeah.
My number 5. Is it my turn? I dare to ask.
I've got 4 more. You want me to just go through them?
No, it's good. I'll take a chance.
Okay.
Over here.
Yeah.
Monetization. Monetization is a less fun category to talk about, but one that ultimately I think is important. And it's going to be that aspect of setting ads on your videos. And this is going to be less about the approach you take and more about, and my next few are actually all going to be about understanding the YouTube algorithms, how YouTube works in order to maximize the growth of your channel and your content and all that. Turn on monetization. Turn on mid-roll ads. Those are things that are important to actually add, because a key facet that you have to understand is that YouTube will always want to make money because that's the space they're in.
Yep.
And to that end, YouTube is going to promote videos that make them more money. So you want to have mid-roll ads in place. And I think you did a full video on this at one point, which is worth watching. Maybe throw a link down below. I'll throw a link down below. It's my channel.
Don't do that.
So maybe. We'll see.
No.
So basically...
You don't want to send people to me.
100%. So mid-roll ads are going to be a thing that if your video is making money, you might sit there and be like, well, the audience is going to click away. There's an ad there. And that might be true. But the flip side is YouTube is going to be sharing your video with more people than if you didn't, because YouTube wants to share the videos that are making the money ultimately. I'm not saying they won't share it otherwise. They are just going to share it more. You need to create a channel that ultimately is monetizing, not just for yourself, but for the general growth of your channel.
Yep. You got another one?
Oh, sure. Let's do that. Thumbnails. Speaking of which, thumbnails are going to be an important facet because of the same idea. YouTube wants to deliver the best content to people. And so that means if they show your video on the sidebar to someone else and that person doesn't click on it, YouTube's going to share it a little bit less next time.
It's called an impression.
And a little bit less next time. And a little bit less. The less people that click on your impression when YouTube shares it, the less YouTube shares that impression. It says, hey, nobody likes this content, we're not doing it. That is why you see in general on YouTube catchy thumbnails all over the place, and you want your YouTube thumbnail to stick out as well. I'll try to link to an article from Jamie Stegmaier on this, who did a great article on this.
No, that's only because he included you.
He included me, but it was great. It was really solid.
It was solid.
The general article, it talks about aspect of you want people to click on your content because they can't find out how good your content is unless they've actually clicked through to it.
The interesting thing with thumbnails is set up a standard style or pattern, something that's consistent and identifiable. And if you really don't know where to start, look at the most successful channels and whatever successful content creators in whatever realm you're in, space you're currently operating in, and genuinely copy what they're doing until you figure out your own voice and style and what works for your community. Because here's the thing, the big guys, like the big people in this industry, they're putting thousands of dollars into psychological analysis, into stats and feedback and A/B testing different thumbnails, and the feedback they're getting is what is informing what the video thumbnails that they're using. If you copy them, you're hopefully taking advantage of a lot of resources that you don't have access to.
Yeah. That's me, my 5 and 6.
You got another one?
Yeah, but my 7 and 8 are tied together. So
okay. So I'll go in. The first piece of content you make will always be the worst.
Oh, good one. Yes, true.
It'll always be. So why don't you start now? I mean, you're stressing about the idea of doing that first video, of publishing that first video, of doing anything, right? You're sitting here watching videos on content creation, and if you haven't begun creating content, well, then you're trying to talk yourself into it. Well, spoiler alert, it doesn't matter how much you practice, how much you read, how many videos and articles and pieces of paper you write or watch or consume. It doesn't matter the type of gear you have or how much you saved and invested. It doesn't matter how old you are. The first piece of content you make, it'll be the worst. It'll be the worst one you're going to make, which is bad news because I'm going to be honest, whoever you are right now, you suck. The good news is the person you are right now is not the best you can be at this. You got a lot of time to grow and experience and adapt your skill set and learn your voice in front of the camera. So start. Commit to the fact that the first thing you make is going to be embarrassing a year or 2 years from now. That is 100% okay. And get excited about what the next 6 months or next 12 months look like if you started producing content immediately.
As a side point, the new title for this video is going to be, right now, whoever you are, you suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good title.
Quackalope.
Yeah. 100%. Your next one?
Oh, I have another one?
Sure. You said you have a bunch.
But I only have 3 left.
I have 4 left, but technically less. Do one more. You'll see. It'll work.
My next one is going to be content over quality. Something that BoardGameCo has taught me. Because here's the reality. Your consistency, your posting, the content you've put out that doesn't worry quite as much about longevity, worries about a immediate conversation.
Yeah.
Because Kickstarter coverage and stuff like that, a little bit
very
more cyclical.
Immediate. Yep.
Even your weekly roundups and stuff, it's designed
completely dead 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, there's no reason why anyone would click on them. No one wants to hear you talk that most.
Doing the algorithm and
of
you
course.
randomly get a video about what happened 4.5 years ago.
And you decide that you want to watch it. Here's the thing. I've focused a lot on quality over the 2 years that we've been doing this. It was the initial idea behind the channel. It was my experience and where we are. And it has opened a lot of doors for us. But there are definitely areas where I've held myself back because I was so focused on the quality that I wanted to put out as opposed to just producing the content, right? This is a thing that you have executed on a lot more efficiently than I. I have better ideas than you, but I just don't execute on them as effectively as you, which means he's going to start stealing them soon, and I'm going to be in a world of trouble. So when you're thinking about the content that you're putting out, I've talked about the equipment that you should have. I've talked about not investing. I've talked about the fact that your first video will be your worst and that right now you kind of suck. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. The content is king. The quality can be fairly poor as long as the conversation is good, as long as the production and the act of having a conversation is there. That will always beat out all this other mess that people worry about.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's
Okay.
reasonable.
Yep.
My numbers 8 and 9, or 7 and 8. That's the one. 7
You're
and
gonna
8.
go twice?
Yeah, 7 and 8. We'll rattle them off. You said you only have like 2 left, right? I gotta catch up. We gotta get together.
I can come up with things.
7 and 8 are going to be tied together as well. Number 7 is going to be watch time. You want to focus again on the watch time of your video. People who are watching your videos, to what degree are they watching it? How long through? Are they watching 20% of your video, 30%, 50%, 70%?
Sure.
And that number, 70% by the way, would be huge. Generally, they say to aim for 50%. That's usually a good number. That's already good, doing well. If you're at 20%, you're probably underperforming. But the general idea is how soon are people clicking away from your content? And that's something you want to pay attention to as a metric because it's going to inform your number 9, which the 8 for me, which is your video length. Your number 8 is going to be pay attention to that watch time to inform your video length. How long should your videos be? YouTube gives you completely useless information, which is your video should be as long as it's good to match the content.
Which is not wrong.
It's
I mean,
not
you have
wrong.
channels,
It's just not helpful in and of itself.
but you have channels like the Lockpicking Lawyer, which has millions of
Oh my
subscribers,
gosh.
and people who appreciate him because
3-minute videos.
a
Boom.
90-second video is more valuable to them than someone prattling on for hours and hours, which is
Absolutely.
something we're not good at.
We're not good at that at all.
But be better than us. Because
But
right
but
now,
it's about making it match the
we
content.
suck.
You want to. It's interesting because like when I watch the Dice Tower, there are 20-minute long videos of theirs that I think are excellent, and I'll watch them. And then there are some videos that I'm like, that's not 20 minutes I'm going to spend on that video.
Yeah.
You want your content to match the presentation, and that's going to take time and energy to feel out both what fits your own personal flow, as well as what about that personal flow is keeping the audience invested. That's why you want to pay attention to that watch time percentage on different styles of videos. Maybe your top 10 lists can cross that half-hour mark and you're totally fine, but when you talk about a review, maybe it shouldn't be more than 15 minutes. You want to pay attention to those and iterate your content around it because, again, YouTube will ultimately suggest your videos based on whatever delivers the best metrics, and so you need to be on top of your game to deliver those best metrics.
so tied with content over quality is going to be the one exception to that rule. Audio matters.
Ooh, good one.
Audio matters so incredibly much. If you're going to break any of the rules that I've laid out, from spending money in this space to stressing about the production quality to making sure that you're as good as possible, audio comes first. People will watch a grainy 360 video. People will watch almost anything as long as it doesn't torture their ears in the process. So get yourself a little phone lavalier mic, get yourself a room mic, a shotgun, whatever you need to guarantee that your audio is going to be clean.
Yeah, and you can get the Rode Mini Micro for like $60 on Amazon. Delivers a solid degree of.
It doesn't have to be expensive. It does have to be quality, or at least listenable. So
Pretty solid. You're right. People will tune out a bad video. They will not tune out a bad audio.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. My number 9 is scheduling and consistency, which we talked about already.
Oh,
'cause
nice.
We did that.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we did that.
And your number 10.
My number 10. We also did this one. My number 10 is going to be love what you're doing. And I want to talk about it again, even though we talked about it before. And even though my list started with figure out what you're doing, why you're doing it, what your goals are. At the end of it, whatever those goals are, love what you're doing. And it's going to be catered specifically to the board game space in the sense that, because I guarantee you're going to have to fight hook, line, and sinker to make this that's not a fresh expression, is it?
I believe hook, line, and sinker.
It's fighting tooth and claw.
No. You fight hook, line, and sinker to get the fish.
No, you don't.
Yeah. You've never seen a fisherman? He's struggling with that reel, man.
Whatever it is,
He's
going
hooking
to
on
have to
the worm
struggle
and just
to make
getting it out there and all jittery.
You're going to have to struggle to make money in this space. So if your goals are financially based, I'm telling you right now, at least in the board game space, I'm not saying it won't happen. I am just saying it is going to be a struggle. Something Rodney Smith from Watch It Play talks about is people in this space, the people who make it, are usually people who spend 8 years, 10 years putting out consistent content, learning what to do, how to do it, and enjoying it. It's not a easy path to money by a long shot, which makes it that much more important to love what you're doing. There could be monetary incentives along the way. It is helpful and nice when you're able to cash that $50 ad revenue check, whatever it is, and you're like, boom, I can buy a new board game. I can upgrade my equipment. When a publisher first pays you for a playthrough, that's fun. It's good. But for the most part, until you get to a certain size, and that's going to take time, it's going to be side money at best, which means you have to love what you're doing, because otherwise there are easier ways to make money, I guarantee it.
Yeah. And my final one is going to be give it all away for free. As much as you can. Your ideas, your experience, the content you make, don't worry about holding on to things, right? Execute on it. Produce. Money and reward and benefit and community, that'll all show up. You don't need to have some arbitrary, lock and key that you're trying to keep secret.
Yep.
If you have good ideas, if you have advice, if you have ways that you can invest in the community, if you have video ideas that you're just not going to be able to execute on, like, share that. Invest in people. Invest in the community in this space. It's one of the principles that comes from people who do, like, wedding photography or do, like, if I was going to go reestablish my family photography or wedding photography business right now, the very first thing I would do is I would go walk through a neighborhood and offer 20 families, or go to a local church or a local synagogue or wherever your community is. And the very first thing I would do in a new space is, over the next month, offer every family that's willing to accept it a free photo shoot. Because I'm going to give them quality work, and they're going to hang those on their wall, and they're going to tell their friends and family, and they're going to call me back in 6 months. And that investment in people, filling the bucket before you take anything out of it, is so valuable. And so, from a content creation side, give it all away. Give as much as you can away. And you'll find that when you're in a time of need, or when you do end up asking, or even when you don't, there's going to be people out there that just appreciate the hard work and the way that you've invested in them and the way that you've impacted them, that will want to give back to you. And speaking of giving back to people, BoardGameCo has a Patreon. And so you should... That ruined the whole end of the video.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
No, I mean,
but,
here, I'll wrap it.
Okay.
My Patreon was launched and established both during a time when the world became complicated and we genuinely needed the help, but also, and largely due to the fact that after about a year and a half in this space, I'd had members that had, from my community, had just sort of shown up and put money in. And I didn't even know they were there to start with, because it wasn't an active, like, Patreon was not active, it just existed. That's why I believe in filling the bucket, because at a certain point it will overflow.
Makes sense?
Yeah. What were you going to say, though?
Oh, I was just going to say that I find it, I found it amusing that I put that thing about watch time into, like, the last, like, 6 minutes of this video.
That is funny.
So that's just because that way the people who made it all that way are like, yeah, that makes sense. And the people who clicked away aren't like, watch time, I'm clicking away after 4 minutes. If you saw the watch time bit, you already made it to the end.
Whatever the case, I hope you all have enjoyed this video. I did a similar call to action on my channel, but this is on your channel, which is different. If you made it to this part, as far as I'm concerned, both of us are an open door. It can be hard to respond to people all the time. Sometimes we get more messages than we can bear. But genuinely, if you are
I still keep up with 80% of comments, somewhere in that range, and emails.
I fall behind, and then I apologize when I send you a message, but I do catch up. If you are a content creator, someone who is exploring this space, if you want to talk, share ideas, anything, feel free to reach out. I won't respond immediately, but I will be grateful for the message.
In fact, fun fact, the reason I wanted to do this video today is specifically because someone did reach out, and they said, I had some questions, I'm starting a YouTube channel, whatever it is, and I was like, I have a list, I have a video that I want to do about that, about things I know, things I've learned. Let me just quickly get that video out, and then I'll just share the whole video with you, and that way, for anyone. So
good answer.
It's genuinely inspired by someone saying, hey, I'd love some advice.
So, all that being said, have a good one.
Have a good one.
I love stealing your end line.
It's just so bizarre. The starts, the ends, there it is what it is.